And I want to get to some of the college hoop stuff from the weekend, and we'll get to all the results momentarily. That crazy Duke finish. Never thought I would defend Duke against the refs, but that's exactly what I'm about to do. Kentucky does lose again. We'll talk about that. Some of the other stuff, Creighton, UConn, UCLA dominating Oregon. But where I want to start is in what was probably, frankly, the most high-profile game of the weekend, Alabama at Auburn. Why is it the most high-profile weekend? Most high-profile game of the weekend? Well, it was because College Game Day was there. College Game Day, you can like Jay Billis, Seth Greenberg, whoever, but when they show up to your town, it means that that game matters. And that game did matter, and it was a big one, and it was an important one, but it was one that had a result, much like pretty much every other game that Alabama has played, certainly in SEC play this year, as Alabama came in as about a 4-point favorite in the Betfred Sportsbook. They win going away 77-69, and with the win, Alabama is now, how about this, 21-3 overall. They are 12-0 in SEC play. They are winning SEC games by an average of 21 points. And so there's been a theory that I've been kind of chewing on here for the last couple of weeks as I've watched Alabama, and that's this. This is a year that all season long we have said there are no historically great teams in college basketball this year. Well, here's my question. Are we sure there isn't one? And are we sure that it's not the Alabama Crimson Tide? I know what you're saying. Torres, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. And maybe I don't. And maybe I'll be proven dead wrong on this. But you come here for sports opinions, and I want to give one because I do think as I explain the Alabama situation, I think there might be somebody that say, wow, that team is actually a lot better than I thought. And so let's start with Saturday, because listen, if this was just another win in a season for Alabama, I don't know that I'd be necessarily like jumping into this one full speed ahead. But this is one where, in theory, this is a game that Alabama should have had trouble. And let me explain why. Alabama's a really good team. We'll get into them in a minute. But this was a game in one of the most hostile road environments in college basketball, Neville Arena, Auburn, Alabama. It has become a notoriously tough place to play since Bruce Pearl got there. That is why Alabama was probably about a 4-point favorite in the Betfred Sportsbook, was because we thought the home court would matter. It's also worth noting that Auburn on paper should have been a really, really, really tough matchup for Alabama. You look at this Alabama team, they're really good across the board. We're going to get to them in a minute. But how about this on Auburn? Auburn came into this game. Are you ready for this? Auburn came into this game ranked in the top 20 nationally in field goal percentage defense. They came into the game in the top 10 nationally in three-point defense and top 10 nationally in block shots. And so I never said that I thought Auburn would necessarily win this game because I didn't know if they had enough offense. But I said, you look at the way they defend. You look at the home court. This is a game that Alabama can lose. Just one problem. You know all those defensive concerns I had, and can Alabama put the ball in the basket? How about this? They shot 63% from the field in the first half, put up 37 points on the road, one of the toughest venues in college basketball in a game against an elite defensive team. They finished the game shooting 59% from the field on the road against Auburn. And as I was watching this game, I was sitting there thinking two things. One, as good as they are, we are not appreciating Alabama for how good they are this season. But two, is there a single team in college basketball? Is there a single team in college basketball that could have gone into Auburn against that specific Auburn team on Saturday afternoon and done what Alabama did? I don't think that there is. You think about some of the teams even that Auburn has played this year at home. Arkansas, who I know they took a loss, and my mentions were filled up. Oh, Torres, big pig invasion, this. Arkansas is a good team. Arkansas went into Auburn and shot 34% from the field against this Auburn team. How about this? Tennessee, I know Tennessee's got its issues, but they put up 80-plus points on Saturday. Tennessee shot 27% from the field against this Auburn team. Alabama shoots 59% in the win. And so when you talk about this Alabama team, it comes back to what I've told you for months now. This Alabama team is really good, and it's for more than you think. I think everybody thinks in 2023, Nate Oates, all they want to talk about is the offense. And the offense is great. The offense is phenomenal, right? Because, again, people in the media, and I include myself in this in some cases, I try to look kind of beyond the narrative, right? We have a narrative. Is it true or not? And I've said for weeks on Alabama, I think that the narrative on Alabama is misguided at best. I think because the offense is so good, because the offense is so good, this is a team that doesn't get enough credit for how good their defense is. So we think about Nate Oates, we think about Alabama, and we think about the fact that right now they rank number 3 in the country in scoring, behind only 2 teams, Gonzaga and Oral Roberts. Okay, I believe it was Gonzaga and Oral Roberts. I looked it up earlier. I'm forgetting who was actually in front of them. I know Gonzaga was 1. But because we focus so much on the offense, here's what we don't realize. And I have the stats right in front of me, so forgive me because I wrote them down and now I have lost them. Alabama, and I'm looking at the stats right now, so forgive me. Can you hear the paper crinkling if you're listening on podcast? They're number 3 nationally in field goal percentage defense. So everyone focuses on the offense. Number 3 nationally in field goal percentage defense. How about this? Number 2 in the country in 3-point defense. They're number 21 in total rebounding, and they're number 17 nationally in block shots. And so just think about that Alabama team. Everybody wants to focus on the offense. If you're top 5 nationally in scoring, but also field goal percentage defense, 3-point percentage defense, you're a top 25 nationally rebounding team and a top 15 nationally or whatever it was, block shots team. That is an elite team across the board. And that's why I think we need to start talking about them as a potentially historically great team. This isn't just about the offense. They're great on defense. They're great at the rim. They're great blocking shots. And we have the numbers to start backing up. This team might be better historically than we've given them credit for. I saw this stat, it blew me away. So coming into this game, Alabama was beating SEC opponents by an average of 22 points per game. Through their first 11 SEC games prior to Saturday, that was the most of any team in any power conference since the 1980-81 season. So we're talking about 42 years that a team has beaten opponents as convincingly through 11 SEC games or 11 conference games as Alabama. You know who number 2 on that list was? The 1995-96 Kentucky Wildcats, considered the greatest team in the history of modern college basketball. Look them up if you don't know them. Rick Pitino was the head coach. Ron Mercer was on that team. Tony Delk, Walter McCarty, my buddy Cam Mills, on and on and on. The team that's number 3 behind them, the 98-99 Duke Blue Devils, who were by far the best team in the country that year. Oh, until they ran into the UConn Huskies in the national championship game and lost. But why I bring it up, Alabama is beating teams in the same way that the team that we consider the greatest team in the history of modern college basketball, the 95-96 Kentucky Wildcats did, and the same with the 98-99 Duke Blue Devils, who are widely regarded as one of the best teams in college basketball not to win a national championship. Well, now through 12 games, they're winning by an average of 21 points per game. And I saw this stat, credit Gary Parrish from CBS Sports. He's actually been on this podcast a few times. Nice guy. I don't know him well, but I respect his work. Gary Parrish put out this stat. Alabama's beating their first 12 SEC opponents by an average of 21 points per game. How about this? That 2015 Kentucky Wildcats team that entered the Final Four undefeated, I'm using only in air quotes, beat SEC opponents through 12 games by an average of 15. And so you look at some of the final results for this Alabama team, it's absurd. They beat Vanderbilt by 47 points this year. They beat LSU by 40. They beat Florida by 29 and Kentucky by 28 points. They have 4 wins in SEC play by 28 points or more. That's absurd. And by the way, when we talk about Kentucky, I still think they're making the NCAA tournament. But Florida's a fringe bubble team. Kentucky's a bubble team. Alabama beat it by 25 plus points per game. And so to wrap up in conclusion, I think we have to start talking about it. And I think there's an important element here that not enough people really talk about. Oftentimes, now there are years like the 2015 Kentucky Wildcats, you can see it in real time. You can see in real time, oh, this is like something potentially special. Now, we all know how 2015 ended for Kentucky. I don't mean to make everybody cringe, but I also think there are years where there are teams that are great that are, what do they say? They're right under our nose and we don't realize it. I'll give you an example. 2018, Villanova. That was the year that they steamrolled everybody in the NCAA tournament. But during the season, there wasn't a huge groundswell of this team has the potential to be historically great. Then they go to the tournament and they start destroying people. They win the national championship game by 15, 18, 20 points against Michigan. They win the semifinal against Kansas by like 30. And you look up, you say, oh, that team is really good. And then they had 4 players drafted in like the first 35 or so picks in the NBA draft the following spring. So I just bring it up to say, sometimes we don't realize in real time how good a team is. Now, I want to make one thing clear. I think they have the potential to be. They're not there yet. Regular season's not done. SEC tournament's not done. National championship is not done. And I do have one concern about this team, and it is the youth of this team. As 4 of their top 6 guys are freshmen, and then you throw in Nimari Burnett, really talented transfer from Texas Tech. None of those guys have ever played in an NCAA tournament. So I'm not sitting here saying it's definitive, whatever. What I will say is I believe that on today, February 13th, 2023, I believe at their best, they're the best team in college basketball. But what I will also say is I think we could look up in the spring and they have a chance to do something really, really, really special. Obviously, look, they're on the verge of the first number 1 seed in Alabama basketball history. I think we could have a scenario where they're competing for the first ever Final Four berth and national title berth in college and in Alabama history as well.